All right, this is Podium Pursuit. It is June 4th, 2024, 11:44 a.m. Pacific Time. We are going to have some dialogue here for a bit. I've been, um, considering different topics to discuss, and on Podium Pursuit, wanted to dive into some more athletically inclined conversations and videos. So, really, this is going to meander over a number of different topics, different sports, whether those be high school, college, professional, just exploring, different elements of all the leagues and organizations that are out there, including professional and the Olympics, hence the name Podium Pursuit. Again, it is June the 4th, 2024. It is 11:45 a.m. Pacific time. So, one of the sports that I find relatively interesting is college softball. Uh, we know that at present the collegiate organization is going through the College World Series. So, lots of exciting game developments and things that take place uh, as uh, as that forum plays out. We have different players stepping up at opportune times, different teams kind of showing up at the right moment and exceeding expectations. So, when you kind of compare uh, what's going on in the collegiate pursuit of the World Series and the Olympics, which is just right around the corner, it's going to be interesting to see how many of the players transition over onto the Olympic team. Um, Perhaps some that are at the tail end of their college careers. Maybe there are some that would like to, but due to eligibility reasons, are not able to do that. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out over time here over the next 60 to 90 days as we get geared up for the uh, the 2024 Summer Olympics. Um, Fair to say that the United States team, a traditional kind of perennial favorite. We'll see, what happens with the way that the Olympics turn out. So, the College World Series double elimination today. So we have Oklahoma and Florida, um, and they will play the Texas Longhorns. So, one of the things that's interesting when you consider college softball, um, when you start to delineate the differences between baseball in the collegiate ranks and softball, number one, uh, you have to address the fact that the pitching is, dramatically different. When you look at the pitching mound in softball, the mound is essentially flat. There's really no hill, so to speak, that we see in traditional baseball. So you wonder, as a outsider looking in, what does that do to the velocity of the pitch? How does the pitch look differently when it's coming into the batter? There are all these kind of physics things that you would expect that would be very different just due to the change in position where a mound, doesn't exist per se in college softball. Uh, we would be remiss if we also didn't mention the fact that you have softball pitchers that pitch underhand versus overhand in college baseball. So, in baseball, you start to hear a lot of conversation about pitch counts and protecting the pitcher's arms and maintaining health and integrity of the shoulder, the elbow, and so on. However, um, in softball, it appears to be a very different dynamic in that the pitches are underhand. Uh, a superstar pitcher can pitch multiple days in a row. They seem to have relatively high pitch counts. So the strain of the overhand pitch does not seem to be the same in terms of an underhand pitch, just by virtue of the amount of days a college softball pitcher can pitch in a row, and the fact that their pitch count does not seem to be as important as a consideration for uh, the pitchers in that game. So those are a few things that stand out. In addition, of course, you've got some of the pitchers in college softball. You'll see them wearing a mask. Um, really, obviously for safety reasons, but you start to then evaluate the distance from the mound to the plate, and pitches roughly 60, 70 miles an hour is probably pretty high in a softball environment. Um, so that ball can get on them relatively quickly. So you certainly see more of the face mask element in pitching and softball. And then, even if we were to expand that out to look at the batters quite often are wearing a full face mask as well, which is attached to the batting helmet. So, um, as far as safety, when you look at pitching, you definitely see a difference in that it's more frequent to see a face mask on a pitcher, where it would be relatively unusual to see that on a baseball pitcher. So again, just highlighting some differences. This is Podium Pursuit. It's June 4th, 2024, 11:52 a.m. Pacific time. So between the game of college softball and college baseball, you do see some distinct differences. In the way the game is played. So, one thing we have to also evaluate is, after looking at the pitcher, we also look at the batter. Um, does the batter use an aluminum bat or a wood bat? It's my understanding in college softball they are using aluminum bats, which is the same type of bat they use in college baseball. You wonder if what the impact of the difference in distance from the pitcher to home plate, how that plays a role in softball, where perhaps it wouldn't uh, in baseball. Um, so a lot of the time, in college softball, just anecdotally, I would say you see a fair amount of uh, contact type hits where a batter makes contact, perhaps gets the top half of of the ball, and therefore, the result is in a ground ball that you know moves about the infield, and speed really becomes an important consideration when you begin to think about um, contact. Ball gets hit into the infield. The batter, is trying to get to first base as quickly as possible so that they can outrun the throw to first. Um, you also have the opportunity for that kind of hastened pace of the pitch and the hit towards the infield, where if the batter is fast enough, as they're running to first and that infielder begins to feel pressure uh, due to the speed of the batter running down the line towards first, and you start to see the impact of the rush as the player attempts to outrun the throw, and you see the potential likelihood of an error either on the pitch or on the catch at first base. So, because of this uh, element of infield hits, you start to wonder, what are the scenarios in which you would swing away, or what are the scenarios where you might bunt and attempt to get on base on first, or you might perhaps attempt to advance a runner um, into scoring position with a bunt, um, trying to get contact on the ball. So, um, one of the things as you consider from a batter's perspective, we've talked about contact on the ball, the potential for, a fast base runner to put pressure on the infielder to incite an error. Well, you also have the impact of uh, the, the distance in the outfield of the wall, and its impact on uh, a batter's ability to hit a home run. So the fields appear to be a bit smaller in college softball. Uh, the ball is obviously a bit larger um, than what we have in college baseball. So you start to wonder about what the implication is with aluminum bat, slower pitch speeds by virtue of the underhand pitch as opposed to the overhand pitch, um, the density of the ball, the size of the ball, and the distance to the outfield wall. Um, you've got sluggers in softball that if they get that right pitch, they're going to send it over the fence. And it does seem to happen a fair amount. Um, but I think the question is what does the distance do in a batter's decision or a coach's decision to have their player swing away or to bunt? Um, when a player does swing away and they pop the ball up to the outfield, um, what opportunity does the outfielder have to kind of navigate a smaller field as opposed to a baseball field and be really aware of where that outfield wall is because it's closer than what you see in a traditional baseball field. So these are some things that you wonder, what the implication is on the game. You also start to consider if there is uh, a ball that gets hit to the outfield, you wonder, um, with those smaller fields, what the result is on an outfielder's ability to throw out a player at on base, whether they're trying to throw out a batter that is trying to stretch a single into a double, trying to stretch a double into a triple, or potentially a triple into an inside the park home run. With that smaller field, you might say there's more of an opportunity for that to happen. But you also have to consider the size of the ball, um, and the speed at which that ball can be returned into the infield to the fielder so that they can try and tag the runner out. So when you see a flyout, you start to wonder about what the plan is in terms of strategy, backing up the outfielder, um, what the protocol is for that, what the coaches have done to prepare the players for strategic moments in which they have to make a decision. Um, these are all the things that you start to kind of take into account. So as we kind of revert back to our pitching conversation, one thing we did not delve into is the difference in right-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching from a softball perspective and a baseball perspective. So, much like baseball, obviously a very different look for a batter when they're standing at the plate than they're seeing a ball come from the left side versus the right side. Kind of understanding what the arm slot looks like in baseball, similar, however, different in softball, where the arm slot and the release is happening at the hip as opposed to shoulder level. So definitely, um, left-handed pitching versus right-handed pitching certainly contributes and makes a difference to a batter's ability to be successful. You also consider what uh, the propensity is for a ball to either tail in, tail away, tail up, or drop or fall away when you have a softball that's pitched. What is that pitcher's propensity, their arm motion, their tendency at the release point to then drive a ball to either tail in or away, to climb or to drop. That all plays a big role in a pitcher's ability to get outs and keep the ball, or rather the game, moving, because it can be quite painful to watch a game where a pitcher is struggling with command and you have a patient patient batting order where they are really forcing that pitcher to work, and working in terms of throwing strikes or throwing over the plate so that a hit can take place. Again, this is Podium Pursuit. It's June 4th, 2024, 12:04 p.m. Pacific time, and we're diving into just some elements of the college softball game versus the college baseball game, and some of the just nuances of those two, the similarities, the differences, and um, how those impact both sides, how they impact a batter and how they impact a defensive player or a pitcher. So um, when you think about the distances of the fields, college softball, uh, distance from home plate, let's say maybe 200 feet, as opposed to 300 feet for college baseball. We see 400 feet in some cases in the major leagues for baseball. So certainly, the field size, you start to wonder about its role in impacting the game when you've got a batter that is hitting away and happens to get a hold of a good pitch and sends it over the field, sends it over the wall, and hits a home run. So 200 feet, ball gets launched. Depending on pitch location, maybe difficult for a player to hit a ball that's dropping out of the strike zone, but a little easier to ride a ball out when it's elevated in the strike zone so that the player can get some leverage and hit the ball hard. One of the things I think about when I'm considering defense, going back to that, we talked about, the distance, things being closer. If a player gets a good hit on a ball, they sting the ball, and it gets hit hard to the infield, because the distance is, everything is closer. You then begin to wonder about an infield defender's ability to get a hold of the ball, to make a good play on the ball, be clean, avoid an error. So some of these things certainly play a factor when you're trying to make a good play on a ball to help your team and get a player out so that the game can then continue. When you consider the pitch count not being such an important factor, it seems, one thing you have to consider is what role does a relief pitcher play? It seems like uh, perhaps relief pitching might not be as much of a factor, especially if you happen to have a what I would call an elite uh, type pitcher who is really, doing a good job commanding the ball in the strike zone, able to keep the hitters uh, off balance so that the ball's going in, ball's going out, ball's coming in the strike zone, but dropping. You have that kind of tailing approach. Um, what what the impact that has on on those players. So some of the other things to kind of keep in mind as you are considering college softball. Um, Again, we're here at Podium Pursuit. It's June 4th, 2024, about 12:10 p.m. Pacific time. Some of the things that you think about are things like, how hard a ball gets hit and what the ability of the defensive infielder or the outfielder in some cases is in their ability to get to the ball in short order because the fields are smaller. So does that then in turn mean that there are fewer extra base hits because the smaller field doesn't allow the batter the ability to to run and get extra base hits? Or does it really just not make much of a difference? These are some of the interesting things that we consider when we evaluate the game of college softball versus you know traditional baseball. So when you are at first base and you've had an infield hit that has potentially come towards you or your half of the infield, um, it's very important that the pitcher and the first baseman and even the second baseman are aligned and communicating with who goes to the ball, who's covering the base. Texas is waiting in the final to see who wins between Oklahoma, which is still in it, and their opponent, Florida Gators, in this double elimination format that we have in the College World Series. So, the pitcher, the first base player, and the second base player all have to be actively communicating when that ball gets struck and the ball's coming over. They need to be on the same page to know who's going to the ball, who's going to cover the base, who's going to provide support, what is the outfielder going to do in terms of backing up the base for whoever's covering the base. So there are, a lot of items for consideration. So one of the key attributes of a player, really in any of those three disciplines, has to be just communication. whether it's in person, like, you know, uh, out loud, they yell it, or it's implied because they have planned, in this situation, I do this, you do that, and they have a rhythm. But when a ball gets hit to second base, that second base player needs to know, am I going to the ball or are you going to the ball first base? If first base goes to the ball, then that means somebody has to cover first. And we already said that the fields are smaller, distances are shorter, so you have less time to make a decision, and you have to be on the same page when that ball gets struck to avoid wasting precious time trying to evaluate, am I going? Are they going? What are we then going to do in terms of covering the base? How are we going to try and minimize the runners on base in an effort to restrict scoring opportunities? And I've seen plenty of situations where the defensive players are not on the same page. A ball gets hit and someone makes an error or just a miscommunication. Things happen, and that one ball that should have been out and out turns into a single. Let's just say a single, or uh, an error which resulted in a runner on base, and that runner on base turns into an avalanche of runs. It's certainly not uncommon to see that happen. And in fact, one misstep can result in a number of issues or errors. So, don't let you be the person that makes a mistake and um, causes an infield hit or an error to occur, therefore kind of opening the floodgates, if you will, for a run or multiple runs to take place, and therefore putting your team in a tough position where they're trying to come back from a significant deficit. So we're on Podium Pursuit. This is June 4th, 2024, about 12:17 p.m. Pacific time. We're evaluating some of the key distinctions in college softball relative to baseball, and just some of the nuances of the game and things that we should be considering as we get geared up for the Olympics, which come around the corner here in about 60 days or so. So we talked about pitching and a pitcher's tendency to throw strikes, whether they're successful at doing that or not. If they can get the ball to cover tail in, tail away from the batter, to rise, to drop as it comes in toward the batter. And one of the things that we should consider is the release point of the ball. So as we talked about earlier, we have a different release point in softball because the ball is pitched underhand as opposed to overhand. And if I'm releasing a ball at the level of my hip, is that ball going to rise as it goes toward the plate? Is it going to go on a flat plane and then drop as it gets to the plate? So are you going to be able to generate ground balls because the ball, as you pitch it, it drops. The batter's trying to get a piece of that ball, and ball's tailing down or dropping, so the batter is able to get just the top half or the top quadrant of that ball, which results in a ground ball, and hopefully an easy play for your infield defenders. You also consider tailing in or away. So, a ball that tails away, you might think as the ball's coming in, you're expecting a ball and it tails over to the strike zone. Or you see a ball that appears that it's coming right down the heart of the plate, and all of a sudden the ball tails away and it is a ball to the outside, and you're swinging thinking you've got a nice big opportunity. However, the ball tails away from you and you're not able to hit the ball. Same thing can be said for a ball that tails in. So you've got a pitch that starts outside and ball comes tails in, covers right over the middle of the plate, or a ball that appears to be coming right down the middle and instead tails in. Easy for a player to get kind of twisted on the pitch. So they're expecting one thing, visually they're seeing one thing, but the movement of the ball does something completely different and unexpected. So therefore, the batter is not able to make contact. Perhaps they'll foul the ball away. Perhaps they'll just simply swing and miss and have a strike. Or sometimes even if the player is not expecting the pitch, and perhaps the location isn't in the best spot for them to give the ball a ride, perhaps you'll see a hit. Pitcher placed the ball in the correct spot, did everything they could. Sometimes the batter just wins, and pitching certainly has and plays a big part of that. When a player hits the ball, because those bases are a tad bit closer than normal, what you might see is a possibility for that player to run out their single. If they're able to outrun the speed of the defensive player collecting the ball, gathering it up, and delivering it to the player covering the base, well, that's a win, obviously, for the offense, and enables them to keep the line moving in an effort to score runs. And as we all know, scoring runs is the name of the game. You simply want to outscore your opponent. Even if you score one run, if you can hold your opponent to 0 runs, that's a win. So, all things to consider as players evaluate strategy for college softball. So we're on Podium Pursuit. It is June 4th, 2024. It's about 12:23 Central Time, Pacific Standard Time. And when you consider a ground ball that gets hit, again, keeping in mind the dimensions of the field and that they're a bit smaller, you wonder what the chance of success is for a double play. Can a defensive player turn a double play quick enough to get both runners out? Certainly shorter base running distances play a factor, in addition to needing to be there, be present, and kind of just see what you can do and how quickly you can turn that play to get the player out, to get the runner out. Understanding, I think I might have a double play here. Runner was on, let's just say runner's on second, runner's on first. Ball gets hit to third base. So as third base player, going to gather up the ball, step on third, get the lead runner out, throw to second, get the player on second out, or will they pick up the ball, step on third, throw the ball to first, get that player out, or one thing we haven't considered, that third base player, do they have an opportunity to pick up the ball, touch the runner with the ball that's going from second to third, and to then throw the ball over to first base and get the first base player out. So, lots of different strategic decisions that have to be made as, a defensive player is evaluating their options. So one of the important things for a defender as they are waiting for the ball and they're in their ready position is kind of coaching themselves through what would I do? Ball gets hit to me, runner's on first. Where am I going to go with the ball? Ball gets hit to me, there's nobody on base. Where am I going to go with the ball? If the batter all of a sudden decides they're going to bunt, where am I going to go with the ball? Now, really, it's this constant soundtrack, if you will, in their mind about what am I going to do with the ball if it comes to me. If the ball gets hit, where am I going with it? In those kind of quick turn moments where the ball comes to you and it comes in pretty quick order, fast order, if you will, what am I going to do? And you might kind of consider that as a preparedness opportunity for the players to consider, what am I going to do if the ball comes to me? Where is my best play? Where can I most help the team to avoid a run being scored? And it's really just a prioritization of opportunities or options to best help the team be put in a position to win. So it's June 4th, 2024. You're watching Podium Pursuit. It's 12:28 Pacific Time. and we are discussing some of the important nuances and considerations for college softball, and some of the issues that we've kind of unpacked a bit have been the difference in pitching styles. Um, Primarily, we talked about the mechanical differences of what that pitch looks like. We've also discussed a batter's ability to impact the game and how they play, whether the ball is uh, kept in field, sent to the outfield, or potentially home run situation. We've talked about the defensive players and what they should be ready for, what they should consider. Um, we've talked about how the mound difference between baseball and college softball, how it impacts the structure of pitching, whether it's speed of the pitch, whether it's the physics of the ball being elevated and coming towards you as a batter downhill. So lots of different things to just kind of keep in mind and evaluate as we consider the differences between college softball and college baseball. We are kind of in the throes of the College World Series right now. Texas is awaiting the winner between Florida and Oklahoma. So it'll be interesting to see, how all of that plays out um, as Texas waits for their opponent. So, Podium Pursuit, June 4th, 2024. It's about 12:31 Pacific time. And as I kind of transition the discussion into base runners, we consider the ability of a base runner to steal a base. The pitch is coming in to the catcher a fair amount slower than what you see in baseball. So, do you have the ability to steal a base, knowing that the ball is going to be moving more slowly to the catcher? Will you be able to get a jump on the pitcher to get to the base? Will the pitcher be able to keep you on the base as opposed to just letting you steal the base without opposition? You also consider the backup or the strategy of who is covering. If there's an errant throw that goes from the catcher to the first base, second base, or third base player, who is backing up that throw? Is it right field, left field, shortstop? Who is responsible for backing up those players defensively? Those are all the strategic elements that you have to really think about and coach and train for in advance. Ideally, so the players don't have to think. It's almost like it is um, just a natural reaction, because you want that to go very quickly in terms of the defender's ability to turn the ball over to the other player. Um, Milliseconds count. So anytime you can remove from a decision process and instead just instill a behavior or a reaction, maybe that's a better way to say it, the better off you'll be, and uh, you'll put yourself in a position to win and your team to win by coaching situational baseball so that the team knows what to do in certain circumstances. I would say that would be a critical element in the or tool in the toolbox, so to speak, of an effective manager. So one of the things that you might consider is the size of the stadium. We've talked about the size of the field. We've talked about the distance of the bases, distance from the pitcher's mound to home plate. But when you consider playing environment, what impact does a smaller crowd have on a home team, or an away team for that matter? The public perception of the game, the excitement, all of those things play a role in a team's ability to entertain a crowd. So the crowd could be smaller because the stadium is smaller, therefore it's a more intimate seating situation where the fans in the stands are closer to the action, so potentially more invested in the outcome. Hard to predict exactly how that would impact the participants. However, I think it is relatively fair to say you could expect smaller stadiums. That notwithstanding, perhaps you also have some more outgoing, excitable fans where they are really able to feel like they're part of the game because they're closer to the action. It's a more intimate environment. Really, kind of the same concept would apply if you were considering a major league stadium in baseball to a double or a single A stadium. The environment's very different in terms of size, amenities, size of the crowd, the excitability of the players and fans that are present. So the stadium and its ability to fill the stands has a direct impact on the environment from a player's perspective to really drive entertainment value for the spectators. So, again, we're watching. You're here with me on Podium Pursuit. It is June 4th, 2024, 12:39 Pacific Time. We're talking about some different challenges, or really just comparison points between college softball and college baseball. The Olympics start, in roughly a little less than 60 days, actually. So Podium Pursuit will be there to evaluate some of the stories and the happenings that will take place in the Olympics. So we're just spending some time deep diving into college softball, um, so that we have some reference point in how a video is constructed, how a message can be conveyed, and how a team can use their strengths and skills to win, in a challenging environment. So we have spent a fair amount of time going through the different nuances from the pitcher's perspective, both in terms of release point. We also talked about, a pitcher's ability to get the ball to tail in, out, up, or down. We spent time talking about the batter's propensity to hit the ball, what the impact or outcome is if the ball has a tendency to drop, to tail in or away. All of those kind of key elements, in addition to defensively, what a defensive player, what they should do with a ball when they get it. They have to have a high amount of focus to know what is required of them. So, focus is key. Effort, they have to put out a tremendous amount of effort, so that if a ball gets hit their way, they are making every effort to try and gather up the ball and throw the player out. So you've got focus, which is key. You have to have effort. That's a foundational element of being successful as an athlete. And I would also say another foundational element would be a positive attitude. And positive attitude not only when things are going well, but a positive attitude when things aren't going well, or when something bad happens. How quickly are you as a player able to bounce back from that situation and put it behind you? Some people might refer to that as, be a duck, let it roll off your back and just move on. And some players who have mental toughness and resiliency are able to do that. Other players don't have the ability to do that. And I think that is an important item for consideration that really separates the good from great, or the average from excellent, is a player's ability to have a great attitude and the way that they handle stressful situations, the way they overcome mistakes, the way they use positive self-talk to generate new thoughts and ideas, new paths forward, and really just construct a new reality around what is going to happen in the next play, or the next time the player gets the ball hit to them, or the next time that player is up to bat. Just that mental visualization of what is going to happen is key in really driving that exceptional performance. So, to recap again, you have to have focus. So, you have to know what your job is and go and execute your job. You have to have uh, effort at a high level. That's table stakes. Effort is not an item up for discussion. It has to be there, and it has to be a foundational element that a player possesses. And then lastly, positive attitude. An attitude which encompasses a growth mindset where the player has the ability to encounter challenges and overcome those challenges without negative implications or a negative thought pattern emerging, which then drives the player's performance down. So, you've been with Podium Pursuit. It's June 4th, 2024, 12:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We've spent some time here on Podium Pursuit going through some of the nuances of college softball, key considerations for the players, both on the defensive and offensive side, and some minor comparisons to college baseball. So I thank you for watching Podium Pursuit and look forward to catching up with you when the Olympics arise in this coming Olympic summer season.